I'm Anna Webb. Welcome to A Dog's Life. Hey, Mr. Binks, you know that we're all getting busy doing a bit of spring cleaning now. Yes. Well, it's very important you spring clean with the right type of products. And that's why we're jumping on Zoom now to talk to Joe Flanagan, who runs Ingenious Probiotics. He's going to explain the power of probiotics like you've never thought of them before. Oh, Joe Flanagan, thanks so much for coming on A Dog's Life.
Morning, Anna. It's absolute pleasure. Love chatting to you and love talking about what it is we're going to talk about.
Oh, I know. Listen, I'm all over probiotic therapy at the moment, not least because I've been doing a lot of research actually into probiotics over the last couple of weeks. Can't tell you what, it's top secret, but I've been
Ooh.
researching probiotics from an internal perspective, Joe, okay, relating to dogs actually and how to maximize their nutrition and their microbiome through probiotics. And I've discovered that many probiotics are generally aimed at humans, actually, but there are very few internal probiotics for dogs. And I think I know why. I think the
Yeah.
science on probiotics is not that big at the moment, and I think it's about to explode. What do you think?
Well, obviously, I agree. Um, but there again, I wouldn't I? But I think the reason it's going to is in an explosive phase is that there's a general awareness of a number of things going on. First of all, you mentioned the microbiome, and many people who didn't know that microbiome existed are now fully aware of it, or or at least aware to it of it to some degree. So most of those conversations would be around the gut microbiome, fair enough. But a lot of people are realizing that this whole microbiome is existing in us and around us and on us, and that coupled as well with, I think, the we're reaching a point where people are beginning to question the amount of chemicals they use and the amount of pharmaceuticals they use, um, and uh, looking for an alternative, but mainly coming to that understanding that hey, we're using a lot of stuff here. That and do we need to be using this amount of stuff, and what is this stuff? And by stuff I mean chemicals and pharmaceuticals and so on. What is it doing to us and creating around us? So I think it's not just the awareness of of probiotics, but also the awareness of hang on, there's a problem growing here, and we need to make a change.
Yeah, because the probiotics that when we met at the London Vet Show, I just couldn't believe our conversation, could I? I was quite
Mm,
like, no, probiotics can be used in cleaning products. I was like that, wasn't I? Because you're absolutely right. I mean, it is about thinking of our whole atmosphere.
yeah, so the whole zoom out. I find myself saying that to people that ring up with issues. I say zoom out, have a look. Okay, this conversation might be starting with a dog skin issue, but zoom out and have a look at around a pet's life and the chemicals it's exposed to, the chemicals we're exposed to. We can talk about nutrition. That's a whole other thing. Well, I can't. I'm not that expert, but people can talk about nutrition. Um, and then so reducing those chemicals and finding another way. And when you look into chemicals and why we use them for cleaning, it's a relatively short history. It only goes back to like something like the Second World War. So we're brought up with this idea of you have to kill germs. So this germ theory idea that germs are bad, gotta kill germs. What are germs? Well, germs are the microorganisms, the little nasties, we gotta kill them. Okay, well let's zoom out from that. And what percentage of the little microorganisms, what percentage of those are actually bad for us? Well, about 0.01%. Oh, okay. So what we're doing is then we're going to use chemicals which have all sorts of side effects we can talk about. We're going to use chemicals to wipe out all the bacteria. Okay, fine. Now you understand that the natural state of affairs is for us to be covered with bacteria, every surface covered with bacteria. And without it, we would be in a lot of trouble. So when we talk about a dog and you look at your dog, and you're looking at about 20 trillion microorganisms in, on, and around the dog. Same with humans, even more, maybe 30 trillion microorganisms.
Wow,
So
yeah.
yeah, so wiping them out has consequences. So with probiotics, instead of an anti-life chemical approach, we take a pro approach. So we cleanse with good bacteria, basically to outcompete the bad bacteria. And it's very simple. It's back to nature, and it works really well.
Yeah, it is fascinating. In my study I did, I learned that the indoor environment is actually can be up to 100 times more toxic than outdoors, because we're really tuned into air pollution and all the rest of it, and carbon dioxide and nitrogen dioxide nanoparticles that we can breathe in, and that's all, yeah, very relevant. But indoors, as you say, with the cleaning products, I think there's still a lack of awareness, I think, as to how these chemicals can invade our bodies and, do serious harm at a cellular level.
Yeah, the disruption to the body's natural defense mechanism, or just chemical overload. I think that is one of the things that is becoming more apparent, and it's a little bit polar, because we have some parts of the community saying, right, we have to kill more things, we use more chemicals, and these people would be selling a lot of product, and billions and billions of pounds worth. And then on the other side, you've got the people saying, well, okay, we're starting to understand that when you look into it like you've done, and you find it, okay, the indoor environment, the indoor air quality is that many times worse than the outside air, and we know that the outside air is bad. Not many people would argue with that, and you yourself was telling me about studies showing that the low level where the dog is worse than the higher level where the human's breathing apparatus is.
Yeah,
And
and toddlers, do you know what I mean? Toddlers are,
and toddlers and toddlers.
yeah.
So people know that the outdoor environment is in the pram. Yeah, no, absolutely. So we're wheeling them around and we're aware of pollution. You hear the mayor of London talk about it all the time, and absolutely correctly. So last year, about 2 years ago now, I think it was the first case of a person having the words air pollution included in their death certificate after a long fight by their mum. Um, that's a wonderful and heartbreaking story in itself.
Oh,
Um,
I know. Yes. Yeah, that was dreadful. But
yeah,
it is true. But as I say, indoors, there's
indoors, of
all of
course.
these things like
Yeah,
flame retardant chemicals lurking around in some of your soft furnishings, and it's what you clean your floor with. So I try and buy plant-based cleaners. We won't mention any brand names, but you advised me the other day, actually, Joe, that the product range I've been buying has actually been bought out by a major, I don't know what you would call them, CMFG brand, hasn't it?
yeah.
You know who
It's
I'm
good.
talking about.
Yeah, yeah, and have a long history of animal testing on animals. Absolutely, and it's this awareness you're talking about. That people are now linking the indoor air quality with health. And if you're saying, well, the indoor air quality is worse than the outdoor air quality, and the outdoor air quality is bad, so that gives you a yardstick. And so, well, what does cause the indoor air quality to be so bad? And there are a number of different things. As you say, the flame retardant chemicals in your sofa might not be something you can get rid of very quickly. The off-gassing from your furniture, again, you may not be able to get rid of it very quickly. But there are certain things that you can change. So anything that goes into the air, anything that wipes out the microbiome, anything that's antibacterial, you're going to be breathing that in. So we talk about pollutants, like even depending on what you're cooking with, and are you drying clothes on the radiators. All these things have an effect, but the thing we're looking at is, as you say, the floor cleaner, the general surface cleaner, and for two reasons, uh, in terms of pet health. One is, it's just got a bunch of chemicals in it. So your dog is absorbing the chemicals. They don't shower every day like humans. They don't have protective clothing like humans, and they are lying naked on your floor, unlike most humans. But also, they they sweat through their paws. So there is this sense with some people that say it's okay, I can clean my floor with whatever I like as long as I leave the dog out in the back until it's dry and then bring him in. Now, the dog's going to be walking on wet grass and then walking across the floor, or he's just going to be sweating through his paw pads and wetting the floor. He's then going to be absorbing those chemicals through his skin on his paws into his body. He's going to be licking then as well, ingesting directly into his body. And then he's going to be breathing whatever fumes are coming off from those cleaners again into his body. So you got one area is this chemical exposure. And when we're talking to people about dogs with skin issues and whatever, you have to look at this again, zoom out. What overload items are being pushed upon this dog? New, like food, cleaning chemicals, all these things, layer upon layer upon layer. And then at some point, it starts to break through and become a problem. And you don't always know what the straw that's going to be the camel that breaks the camel's back is going to be, but you know you're going to get there at some point. So you have this chemical overload. At the same time, on the other hand, you have this microbiome that people are becoming aware of. We're covered in the microbiome. It's really quite important. The dog's outer layer of skin is only about 6 cells deep. Now, it's covered in a healthy microbiome. And when you expose them to microbiome killing chemicals, because that's what the cleaning products say, this will kill all known germs, or 99.9% of germs. What it means is it's killing all bacteria, maybe the other things in the microbiome, like little bits of fungus and whatever, but it's killing all the bacteria. And talk about throwing the baby out with the bathwater. You're killing all the good bacteria. You're wiping out the microbiome on the skin. This is on top of the chemical, the chemical exposure, if you like, for the body. So you're wiping out the microbiome. And the question is then, what happens next? And it's the same question for the dog's skin as it is for the kitchen floor. You're going to wipe out all that microbiome. What happens next? How long does Mother Nature leave a surface not covered in bacteria? And now you're not in control of what that bacteria that's going to recolonize is going to be. So you do the same on the dog's skin. You're wiping out its microbiome, which it needs. It's got a nice balance on there. It might have some streptococcus, it might have some E. coli. Doesn't matter because it's balanced. It's got lots of the good stuff. A little bit of bad stuff in the gut, fine, as long as there's lots of good stuff in the gut. Same to skin. So when you wipe all that out, you're not in control of the wibble wobble factor that can happen afterwards and go slightly out of whack. But with a probiotic, we take control of that. We say, well, we know there's going to be a microbiome because we're going to put it there. So we're going to clean the floor with something that leaves a microbiome behind. So now we have a healthy microbiome on the floor, on the dog's skin, in the dog's ear. We'll talk about it in a minute, whatever. I'm sorry, I'm going off on one here, Anna. Aren't I?
No, Joe, you're not going off on one. It's absolutely fascinating. You know, I know everyone's like glued into this.
Well, the other thing that comes up in the conversations we've had about itchy dogs and dogs with allergies is the bioallergens that they're breathing in. So the probiotics are consuming bioallergens, and what does that mean? Well, it's bits of pollen, bits of dead skin cells, dried saliva, dust mite poo is a big one, and the probiotics are actually feeding on this. And the way they work, instead of chemicals that are wiping out everything, the way the probiotics are working is that they're consuming the organic waste food that would normally feed the bad bacteria. The bad bacteria might be what gives off odors. It might be what causes skin inflammation. So we're keeping those guys away, not by trying to wipe them out, but simply just eating their food so they fade away. Their numbers drop right off the scale, and the good guys take over. The good guys don't cause inflammation, and they do get rid of the organic waste. And this is something we see particularly in the skin, which is really important, because when you get an allergen, some issue with the skin's getting red and raw and being scratched and whatever, then the skin is trying to repair itself and producing more sebum. That attracts more of the bad bacteria, gives them more food, and you can get this kind of cycle thing going on. Whereas again, with the probiotics, you can go on there, keep the bad bacteria away, let the skin heal itself and do its thing. So this cleansing with probiotics is simply using a natural action, a probiotic action, instead of a chemical action.
Exactly. And I think, one good example of this is with your teeth. I've actually got a hygienist appointment this afternoon, dreading it. Okay. Now, because this is okay. So you're basically describing how the microbiome, which exists in our gut, we recognize that, is actually all around us. Because we should not live in a sterile environment. We're not like astronauts. Let's face it, walking around the world in a that could be the next stage if we carry on like this, isn't it? That we're in these big costumes the whole time. So we need to embrace Mother Nature, as you say. But so thinking about teeth here, because there is Dog Dental Month approaching.
Yeah.
And, it fascinates me, all of these products that are marketed at a human level. And if we compare humans to dogs, there's many parallels. We're actually thinking more about our own diet now on a human level, to fuel us naturally. And more people are embracing this with their dogs and feeding naturally, feeding, raw meat that again fuels the microbiome. Is like we've been talking about here with the floor, you're putting good bacteria into the dog's stomach, which is fighting the bad bacteria to allow the immune system to really flourish, but also in the mouth. And I've been using your dog dental spray, which is amazing, right? Because it's not only extremely cost effective, but Mr. Binks, my little toy terrier that I've been using it on, he has a bit of a problem with his teeth because he has a problem. He's got Legg-Calvé-Perthes disease, which is a bone deficiency. He has a degenerative condition, you see. So his teeth have been affected. And when I got him age 2, and Joe, he'd already had 2 dentals at the age of 2. God, I know. Anyway, but he loves the taste of this dental spray. And explain how that works, because that's doing what we've just been talking about the floor, but it's doing it in your dog's mouth to really encourage healthy teeth and gums.
Yeah. The similarity is it's very close in how it's working. Okay, the floor cleaner's got some natural surfactant in it to actually clean away dirt as well that you wouldn't put in the dental product. But
okay, so there are different strains of probiotics are there in the different, because you've got an extensive range. Let's just say this for people to check out here for all sorts of different issues, not only for the teeth, but you've got a tear stain product that I've also been using, funnily enough, on my cat Joe, because he's been having tear stains. I'm not quite sure what's up with him, actually. Again, it's an immune deficiency going on with him that I'm working on. But he's black and white, so he's got white around his eyes, and he's been having what I call Bichon Frise eyes going on, right? So, so I've been getting your eye care product, really spraying loads of it onto a tiny bit of soft cotton wool, and then just wiping, the corners of his eyes and getting, what is the brown stuff off, basically. Because we had a conversation about this, and how I know this is going to work is that it is putting healthy bacteria into this area that is being compromised at the moment to balance, as we've been talking about, and basically get him back onto an even keel.
Yeah, and the way the dental and tear stain or eye care products are working, it's very, very similar, Anna. So in the dental, you're spraying a probiotic directly onto the teeth and gums. And my cat's the same. My cat likes it and pretends he doesn't, but then goes and has some food afterwards because it makes him think of food. So you're putting that on there. And again, it's doing 2 main functions. One is it's keeping the bad bacteria away, the bad bacteria that will lead to plaque and tartar and then onto gingivitis and periodontal disease, right? So it's doing it. And it's doing that by, again, keeping eating their food, basically. So it's getting into the sockets, into that space between the teeth and the gum. And with brachy breeds and small dog breeds, where you got those teeth all kind of pushed up together in a small area, getting into those little tiny gaps between the teeth and eating the organic waste. And I liken that to why humans floss. And humans are told to floss to get rid of the little bits of organic waste in between the teeth for the benefit of your heart, because we know that in humans, if you get little bits of little infection in and around those gum areas because of the organic debris up there that's been fed on by bad bacteria, that will then travel through the body through the little blood cells, blood vessels that the gums are connected straight into. So it's the same connection with dental care. With the rest of the body. With dogs, that's brain, heart, and liver and so on. Cats, kidney in particular, and if you want to keep an eye on kidney disease for cats, one of the ways you do is check the early warning signs for dental issues. So it really helps with a much wider health protection right across the board. But then this, and things like bad breath as well, actually. But the same thing then is going on with the eyes. So we're putting the probiotic in and around the eye, helping against things like conjunctivitis, if it's bacterial conjunctivitis. But again, it's eating that organic waste. So that organic matter that might be causing the staining and so on is a food for the probiotics. So it's this double whammy, Anna, going on all the time, eating the organic waste that you don't want to have, and by doing so, keeping away that small element of bacteria that would cause a problem.
No, it's so interesting because, you know, I'll be honest with you, in terms of Mr. Binks's teeth, you know, what with Dog Dental Month coming up, this is such an easy way to keep your dog and your cat's teeth in good health, because lots of dogs hate having their teeth brushed, you know, and many people take their dogs to the groomer to get their teeth, you know, really overhauled, as it were, because owners haven't trained their dogs to think of their teeth being brushed as a game. You know, I think anyone who's had a puppy or bring a puppy into their lives have no excuse, right? It is possible to train your dog to love having their teeth brushed, but it's little and often. You got to put the time in, lots of repetition. You start with cream cheese on your finger and you build from there, but it's got to be very incremental and fun, you know. And then, you know, you could get the toothbrush out and go, yay, toothbrush time. And the dog will jump on the sofa and they know treats are going to be involved. And it's time and bonding with your dog. But that's something, it's another podcast episode, that people aren't doing enough, actually, bonding with their dog. But you know, just by spraying it on, it's so easy, you know, and it's all about, I think, you know, working preemptively, so that because if you don't look after your dog's teeth, what's going to happen is, like Mr. Binks, age 2, he'd already had 2 dentals. Now, unlike me going to the dentist later, I'm not going to have a general anesthetic. It's going to hurt. It's going to be dreadful, but I love my hygienist. But, you know, Mr. Binks doesn't need to have too many general anesthetics in his life, to be quite honest, because that is oxidative stress of a top class delivery of it. There's no beating about the bush. An anesthetic takes your dog very close to death. And sometimes they don't wake up from it, isn't it, Joe? So if you can prevent that having to happen, it not only keeps money in your bank, but putting it bluntly, it could keep your dog alive for longer.
Yeah, exactly. So it's going to save you money. And if it's a good vet practice, they're going to be busy anyway. They don't really need your money. The dog doesn't need to be going through this, to be avoided at all costs. And at the same time, keeping up the dental health and protecting it, and realizing the actual overall importance of it, not just in how the teeth look, but in the overall health of the animal in total.
Absolutely, you know, absolutely. You know, and I love the thought of this huge flexibility. I mean, I think this is just so exciting, Joe. I really do. I mean, because, you know, you've got shampoos as well that can be used to really nourish the skin, rather than using, you know, because with the teeth, going back to that, you know, you're marketed on telly, you're marketed, I won't mention any brands, but all these mouthwashes that are supposed to fix the problem, aren't they? But actually, they're just making the problem worse, which is going to mean that you go to your dentist even more.
Well, it's wider than that, even, Anna, because again, those kind of products, in my mind, link into the antibacterial cleaning products that we're breathing in. So you have a body that's, whether you're human or a dog, you have a body that's very heavily dependent upon bacteria, and you're consuming and breathing in products that are designed specifically to kill all bacteria. So you put those two things together, and nobody would choose, if they were given a choice, no one would choose to live that way. And when it comes to breathing, by the way, I mentioned about the dog breathing in the chemicals coming off the cleaning products. We breathe in so much more than we eat, in terms of weight, in terms of kilograms. And we know how important what you eat is to you, but also what you breathe. So I'm a grown guy. I'm over 21, and I breathe in somewhere between 12 to 15 kilograms of air every single day. if you're breathing in antibacterial products again into the body that's dependent upon bacteria, then that just doesn't make sense. And if you're using antibacterial things in your mouth, it just doesn't make any sense. So the least amount of microbiome killing product you can have anywhere near your dog, the better.
Yeah. No, 100%, 100%. Well, I'm just loving this whole kind of phrase, probiotic therapy, because this is really, because you're pretty unique in the UK, aren't you, Joe, to be delivering this solution, really?
Yeah, we are, and to be able to, like I say, zoom out and look at the animal as a whole, look at the shampoo, look at the dental care, look at the allergen spray that we use on the dog bedding and so on, look at the cleaning products in the home, look at the soaps and even the dish, what you use to clean the dog bowl. We are unique. So to be able to do all of that in a probiotic way, chemical free, harsh chemical free, should I say, to be exact, and because even water, natural, pure water is still a chemical. So harsh chemical free, but still with this probiotic action. Yeah, we are unique. And sometimes people ask us, well, what's the difference between enzymatic, cleaning with enzymes and cleaning with probiotics? And that's an interesting conversation to have as well sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, can we touch on that a little bit now? In case
Yeah,
people are interested, because
yeah,
that's
sure.
something I hadn't actually thought of. I mean, something that interests me from my recent research, delving into probiotics and which probiotics might actually be the most species appropriate for
Hmm.
your dog internally, though. We're talking about the
Yeah,
internal ones.
yeah.
It's really opened my eyes quite a lot, actually. And I've been a bit worried. I don't think I've been giving my dogs the right probiotics. I don't think they've even been really marketed. I
Yeah,
think it is at such an infant stage,
yeah.
and we think, oh, well, any old probiotic will work. Maybe not, actually. Isn't that right, Joe?
Well, it is for the gut, for the internal, for the gut and so on. You've got to be aware and you've got to know about that side of things, which isn't my area, but I know you can't mess with that. You can't just put any old thing in there. With the outside, it's different, and if you take and we're doing this across Europe at the moment, we're taking samples of dog skin microbiome and trying to find two dogs with exactly the same microbiome in the same town, you'd be very hard pressed in the same, maybe even in the same house. So you get a slightly different microbiome, which is fine, totally fine, as long as it's balanced, that you have good bacteria way in excess of bad bacteria. And it doesn't matter what those good ones are and what those bad ones are, as long as you've got that balance. So yeah, the microbiome of a dog in London compared to a dog in, I don't know, Glasgow, whatever. It could be one by the sea, one near the road, all very different, but fine. As long as they're balanced, good to bad and correct ratio, you're fine. And this thing with the enzymes is a really interesting one, because what enzymes, I often think of enzymes just as a knife and fork. So they kind of break up the organic matter. We're talking about a tiny, tiny microscopic level. So they break up the organic matter. And what the probiotics that we use there, and you're talking about millions of pounds of research and lots of people in white coats, fantastically dedicated people. They're really wonderful. So what these guys have come up with is the probiotics that will release enzymes. So as part of the probiotic action, they will actually release an enzyme, and they will release a different enzyme depending on what organic waste they come across. So if they come across a little bit of dry blood, they'll release a kind of one enzyme. If they come across some food starchy thing, they'll release the same probiotic, will release a different enzyme that does that job better. And then within each product, you have multiple probiotic strains, all releasing slightly different enzymes. So you get this whole cleansing thing going on that happens after the fact. In other words, you clean your dog with shampoo, or you clean the kitchen floor, or you put the dental spray in onto the gums and teeth, and then as you're going out for a walk or going to sleep or watching telly or going to work, those probiotics are doing their thing, and they're continually cleansing the area. And for skin, I think that's an important. You mentioned skin earlier. It's dogs and our first line of defense. It's
Yeah.
it's a really important thing, and to have it wiped out with antibacterial this or antibacterial that just doesn't make a lot of sense.
No, I agree with you completely. And of course, you can tell a dog's health from its skin and coat, and of course, its teeth, and it is so important, I think, just to think of using Mother Nature a lot more. I think, as you say, since the Second World War, we went down the ultra processed, we didn't even eat proper mashed potato really when I was growing up. Well, I did, but there was that famous advert, where
Yeah.
say, that one. And we all kind of went, I think the world went mad for convenience, really. And as you say, this sterile environment, but that's not what we are. We're living microorganisms, all of us, with different individual microbiomes. Absolutely, and that's why every dog's health,
Yeah.
whether they're litter brother and sister, they can have a completely different health, issue. Some
Yeah.
are prone to skin problems and whatever. So it's fascinating that the probiotics actually are so intelligent that they work it out.
Yeah, just something you said there, it triggered a memory as well. We're talking about over, trying to get rid of all the bacteria and being sterile. And the interesting or the sad, one of the sad things is that when you use these chemicals, these anti-life chemicals, and you expose your dog and yourself to the bad effects of them, the cleansing you do doesn't last very long. And there was a speech by a particular microorganism professor from Italy, and she was talking about cleaning with probiotics versus cleaning with chemicals. And she said, when you clean with an antibacterial chemical in a hospital, for example, once a day, you clean the same every single day, you're cleaning this area. Well, for 23 hours of the day, the area is contaminated
Mm.
because that's how long the cleansing actually lasts. So when you wipe out that microbiome and your shampoo dries off or your floor cleaner dries off, then the bad bacteria are coming back very, very quickly. Whereas the probiotics are on there and they're doing a job for about 2 or 3 days. So they'll stay on the coat after the shampoo for 2 or 3 days, eating little bits of fox poo or whatever, but
Huh.
protecting that microbiome on the skin.
I love it. I just find it fascinating. To me, it kind of seems so simple, but it's not simple in any shape or form. But I just think it's ingenious, which is pretty good, isn't it? Because that's your name, Ingenious Probiotics.
Yeah, yeah, we put our neck on the block with that one, so we have to stand up and be counted. I think they call it hung by the tongue. We say, okay, we're going to be good, and we have to be. So we hold ourselves to account, and
Yeah.
very happy to do so.
No, fantastic. Well, I'm very excited about Dog Dental Month anyway, approaching.
Yeah.
And this is one of, the episodes that's kind of going to highlight, looking after your dog's gnashers. And so far, I'm really impressed with the spray. It has taken off some little bits of brown on Mr. Binks's teeth, which is great. Gremlin, my cat, on the other hand, gosh, the vet is staggered by his teeth
Mm.
because he's never had a teeth clean. But most cats don't eat raw food, and
Yeah.
and he has eaten raw all his life. And
Yeah.
they're very, very complimentary about his teeth. So I'm pretty proud about that, actually, I
Yeah.
must admit. Yeah, watch this space on these mysterious tear stains he's getting, Joe. And thank you. Thank you so much for your time today. And I really, really hope we can record another podcast very soon.
It's a pleasure, Anna. There's areas we haven't touched on. Ear care in particular is a major thing. Repeat ear infections and how we stop those with probiotics is a whole other conversation. That's a wonderful area to get into. So yeah, no, look, love chatting to you. It's fantastic, and you're doing great work there.
Oh, thank you. It's Prue sat next to me at the minute. You can probably hear her breathing. Actually, it's not me. It is Prudence. Yeah, ear care, ear care. I'm going to get onto that as well because with dogs, you either get dogs with pointy ears or floppy ears, and all types of ears bring with them various problems. So, like with my dogs, more things can fall into the ear, like dreadful grass seeds, but with the floppy ear, they're more prone to moist, hot conditions because they don't get exposure to the air that much, but all ears have their problems, don't they? Oh,
Well,
gosh. So
it's perhaps just worth finishing on that, and I know we've got to wrap up, but it's perhaps worth just touching on it because I think the ear is like a microcosm for what else is going on. When we talk about the ear, it's from then everything else radiates out. In other words, when people are using an antibacterial product in the ear or an antibiotic or so on, it's a really good example of what else is happening on the rest of the dog's body. And we see this continual, this repeat ear infection. And sometimes long after the original cause of the original infection has gone, people are still getting this repeat ear infection. And we see people say, yeah, every time I get an ear infection, I use this product and it goes away. It's great. And again, you say, zoom out. Your dog should not be getting repeat ear infections. They're painful. Well, why? This should not be happening. And I've mentioned the wonderful Dr. Richard Doyle from Wiley's, and there's something that he's had personal experience of, where the dog presenting with an infection. This is before he got to know about our probiotic ear care, of course. But the dog presenting with an ear infection, treated with antibiotics, seemingly work excellently well. But what's happening is you're wiping out the whole microbiome in the ear, not just the pathogen that's causing the particular problem. And then what happens is, a number of weeks later, and it is that quick, the same dog's presenting again with an ear infection again. And they swab it and they send it to the lab and they look at it in a microscope. And lo and behold, it isn't the same pathogen returning, because that one was got rid of. The antibiotics did a really good job. They got rid of everything. What's happened now is a whole new different pathogen has taken up residence in the ear, because what have we done? We've wiped out the microbiome. The natural defense was not there, and the pathogen could come in and set up. So they would treat with a different antibiotic. It would go away. Dog would be seemingly fine. Lo and behold, another few weeks later, same thing again. So they found by putting the probiotic in there and just putting an army of good bacteria that stop the bad bacteria coming in, because the ear is a great place for bacteria. It's this the sebum,
ears,
warm.
ears.
Yeah. So that's
ears don't. I mean, I'll tell you what, I'm going online now, and I'm not just saying this, I'm going to do this because I have to preempt ears. Gremlin, my cat, is prone to mites in his ears. It's probably a microbiome issue, but these things happen. He's an outdoor cat and he's a bit of a bruiser. So I want to preempt everything now, see, and he's 12. We need this ear care. Prudence needs the ear care, actually, because she's a bit like Lara Croft, you know what I mean? And she'll like burst through bushes and bits of debris end up in her ear, because they're big and pointy. They're like radars. So, there's a lot to be said for a floppy-eared dog, I would say, out there, if people are thinking about what dog to get. But then they've got their problems as well, you see, because there's a lot of moisture, as I said, that. But Joe, gosh, listen, no, you're definitely going to please be coming back. Please be coming back.
Love it.
And thank you so much for your time today. And I found this so interesting, and I really hope everyone listening has too. So all the links are going to be in the show notes, but just in case, what's your website, please, now?
It's all the W's.ingenious-probiotics.com.
Oh, thank you, Joe. Honestly, you're an inspiration to the world.
Oh, Anna, thank you so much. Look, we work hard, but it's an easy area to work with, because it's just wonderful when you get the results and you help some very worried pet owners. We just love it. We totally love it.
And it shows. Yay.
Thank you.
That's our show, Mr. Binks. What did you think? Yes, I know you are having the dental care probiotic spray at the moment, and I think it's making a difference, don't you, Mr. Binks? Yes, you're also right. It is time for Woof of the Week. Thinking about the power of probiotics in a whole new way, that they can help externally as well as internally, it's such thought-provoking stuff. Well, I hope you all enjoyed it. If you did, please rate and review the show wherever you tune into your podcasts. Thanks, of course, to Joe Flanagan for joining us today, and all the links are in the show notes. Thanks, of course, to Mike Hansen at Pod People UK for all the music and production as ever. And find out more about me at Anna Webb Dogs. What's that, Mr. Binks? Oh, yes. We will be back in your feed next Sunday, so why don't you subscribe now, because it's free, and that way you'll never miss another show. Go on. See you next week. Bye for now.